Hi, welcome to Mentor Monday. My name's Lisa Ireland and I'm an author of contemporary fiction here in Australia, and I'm published by Penguin Random House Australia. This is my latest book, is The Secret Life of Shirley Sullivan. I've got 6 books published, but this is the latest one that came out in April this year, 2020. So let's get down to it. What are we going to talk about today in Mentor Monday? I've been thinking quite a lot about the writing journey lately, I guess because I'm in Victoria, Australia, and we are in a very strict lockdown period at the moment because of the global pandemic. And it's given me a lot of time to think about my career, a lot of time to sort of reflect on where I'm at, and also there's been a lot of communication, a lot of online communication, maybe more than I would normally participate in, just because we are in lockdown and we're all sort of finding new ways to communicate, new platforms to belong to. And so I've been paying attention to a lot of writers, both aspiring, emerging and established authors, and their journey, what they see as how they feel about their journey and what they see as success. And I thought this is a really interesting topic to cover with people at the beginning of their career, whether you are hoping to be published in the future, or maybe you've got a book coming out soon and it's your very first novel. And I thought it might be interesting for us to just reflect a little bit on how we manage as creative people to protect ourselves from the ups and downs of the writing life. Because really, being an author, and I suppose working in any of the creative arts, it's not a linear journey. It's to success. Every author will tell you, every very successful author will tell you that to get where they have got has been lots of ups and downs, lots of false starts, lots of times where they thought, wow, this is it, I've made it, only to come crashing down, very soon after. So I think I would have liked to have known when I was starting out that this is normal, that I'm not doing, if this happens to you, sorry, I'm just going to move, I always do that, end up in the wrong light. The sun obviously has moved from when I first set up this morning. So I think I would have really liked to have known and to have understood that it isn't a linear journey, that even when you get your first contract and your first put your first book out, that's not it. You haven't made it. It's not all going to be smooth sailing from then on. So I guess how do we deal with this as authors? How do we cope with the ups and downs of the writing life? So I'm going to say 2 things in there, and I think in some ways they might sound a little bit contradictory. So the first thing is about who you surround yourself with in terms of moral support, and the other thing is about how you view success. So I think it's really important for you to find a tribe of writers that you can experience the writing world with. They don't have to be people that live in your suburb. They don't have to be nearby. You don't have to actually have to catch up with them in person, although that is great. If you find a writers group locally, that is fantastic. But online, you can make friends. You can make writing friends through writers associations, through your local writers centre, through genre organisations, for instance, Romance Writers of Australia. Sisters in Crime is another genre-related organisation that you can join. There's a myriad of places where you can find other authors. So you look on any of the social media platforms. Instagram has a big reading and writing community. Twitter also has a great writing community, and there are many Facebook groups as well. So once you've sort of got yourself a little writing tribe, and it might take a little while to gather your the right people for you around you, then I think that helps a lot, because you're all experiencing the same thing. And no matter how much your friends and family, and the people who are close to you might admire what you're doing or not, they don't really understand the writing life. They don't understand necessarily what we go through to put the words on the page, how disappointing it can be when you put yourself out there, when you put your pages out there by either, even just for critique. It might be the first time you've let somebody else read them. That's very nerve-wracking. Another writer will understand that. If you've entered a competition, and either way, whether you've perhaps won the competition, and that's fantastic, but other people might not understand what a big milestone that is for you, or if you've got some negative feedback that you weren't expecting, it can be quite soul-crushing. And friends and family can, they can be lovely and they can support us as a person, but they're not really necessarily the best people to understand what we've gone through in terms of our creative life. So find yourself some writer friends. But with the writer friends comes something that's a little bit tricky, and that is, whilst there's room for all of us, and there really truly is, it's really hard to participate in the writing life without comparing yourself to others. And if you have a tribe of writing friends, at some point in your friendship, you're all going to have to deal with this tricky thing of perhaps being jealous of somebody else's success. Not that you are unhappy about your friend being successful. Of course we want our friends to succeed. Of course we want them to get a contract, to get a great deal. Of course we do. But we can still experience that and feel a little bit sad for ourselves that, if it hasn't happened for us yet, or you might be the first in your group to get a contract, and that and you might be widely celebrated and perhaps even considered the expert now, but really you're like one step ahead of your friends. So you might feel the weight of that, or you may feel that you have to downplay your success because others in the group aren't where you are at. So these are all things that we have to contend with. And I think in terms of your writing friends, if you surround yourself with the right people, those things might happen. You might feel twinges of jealousy, or you might feel the responsibility or the weight of your own success. But if you've really chosen the right people, a conversation, an honest conversation can fix that. So I have a very close group of friends that I have been traveling this road with since since before we were all published, and I'm happy to say there are 5 of us, and all 5 of us are published. But we came to it at different rates and in different ways. And so, there's probably been challenges for some of us at times, or for all of us at times, where, one of our group is tremendously successful, which is fantastic for her. But I'm sure there's been times where others in the group might have felt that, not that they weren't happy for our friend, but that they were a little bit, sad for themselves that hadn't happened for them yet. But we're very honest with each other. We talk all the time. If there's a problem, not a problem, but if there's a feeling, we can express that with each other. We can be honest. We can say, I'm so happy for you. I'm feeling just a little bit fragile about my career right now. So this is no reflection on you, but I just need to step back for a day or two and just, have my own little headspace. So I think surrounding yourself with the right people you can be honest with, is your biggest weapon against mental fatigue and self-doubt and, just burnout, if you've got people to share the journey with. So that's my first tip. Now, my second tip is more about you and what you view as success. Because we all think of success differently. What is my goal, my greatest measure of success, is not going to be the same as yours. For some people, they may not want to make writing their career, but they've got a story that they're burning to tell. And for them, the goal is to just finish that story and to get it out onto paper. And if they finish that book, then they've completed their goal, and that's success for them. But other people won't rest until they've got an international book deal, it's going to be different for all of us. So there are a few things in this little section, in that I think we need to be careful to set ourselves realistic goals when we're starting out. That doesn't mean that you can't have dreams. It doesn't mean that you should, pack your dreams away like they're never going to happen. But I want you to know that for most people, it's a long, hard slog. Careers are built one book at a time. Very few people write their very first book and it goes off to, like, this is the dream, isn't it? That you write a book and you send it off to an agent who immediately says, this is amazing, I'm going to take it and I'm going to try and sell it. And then lo and behold, not one publisher, but a half a dozen publishers are interested, and it ends up in an auction and you make, I don't know, let's pick a number out of a hat, $1 million with your first book. That could happen. It's very, very unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's improbable. So, but, lots of other good things can happen, and maybe that will happen in the end. So most careers are built one book at a time. You start small and and as I said, it's not necessarily linear. You might have one book that does really well. Maybe the next book doesn't do quite as well because for whatever reason, for instance, there could be a global pandemic and you might release your book in the middle of a global pandemic and people might not be able to get it, or it might be that you've written in a genre that was wildly popular when you published your first book and you have got some fans that way, which is great. But then when you publish your next book, that subgenre has gone off the boil a bit and it doesn't sell as well, or another great, some massively successful international author brings a book out at the same time and everybody's buying that and your book kind of gets left by the wayside. There's lots of reasons, and not necessarily to do with your writing, why one book can sell really well and another one not so well. And that we can talk more about that in further videos. But what I wanted to say to you today is I think it's really important when you're starting out to be clear what you want out of your career, and to be careful what you wish for. Because, for instance, we can look at internationally published authors, people who are, bringing in big dollars, and I'm talking about Australian authors right now. So say someone who lives and works here but has published well internationally and they're making a lot of money. Those people have big responsibilities, not big deadlines, which they have to be able to meet. They have to be able to, get the book out when their publisher asks them to. So if you have sold in a 5 or 6 book deal, that's 5 or 6 books you have to deliver on time. That can be a lot more difficult than when you're first starting out. If you've worked on one book for 4 years, say, to get it out to the marketplace, if you've worked on your first book for 4 or 5 years before you've sent it to an agent and it's become a big success, that's great. But are you going to be able to repeat that? So you have to sort of think about these things when you're starting out a little bit, not too much, but you have to sort of bear in mind that when you're seeing people making big money and getting big book deals, it looks easy, but actually there's a lot of work that goes behind that. It's not just the writing. The more successful you are, the more other things take up your writing life. So the more demands you have on you from publishers in terms of publicity, which is fantastic. We want our books to be publicised. We want our books to get out there into the marketplace. So that's not a bad thing, but it is something you have to consider. That so when I have a new book coming out, I pretty much block out 6 weeks from the time the book comes out until for 6 or 7 weeks with no writing. I know that I might get a little bit of writing done, but I will get very little writing done in that post-release time, because what am I doing? I'm recording radio interviews. I'm writing blog posts. I'm being interviewed for newspapers and magazines. I'm putting social media campaigns together or participating in other people's social media campaigns. All of these things that look like a tiny little Facebook post or whatever when you're on the other end of it in the audience actually take a lot of planning and a lot of time, particularly if they're coordinated. So, and there's more things as well. So what I'm saying is are these the things that you want to do? Like, how successful do you want to be? Of course, you can always change your mind as you set the goals and change, and you can, as your career grows, you can always change your mind. But I think it's a really good idea to set small, achievable goals that you can look back on and be really proud of what you've achieved. So for me, every year I set myself writing goals, and that's how I measure my success. If I achieved the things, and they're all things that I can control, because some things you just can't control. That's your wish list. It's great to have a wish list of, I want to be a New York Times bestseller. Well, you can't actually control that. You can write the book and you can do all sorts of things, but you can't actually control, or you want to be, you want to sell 100,000 copies, or 2 million copies, or you want a certain agent, or you want a movie deal. All those things are great wish list items, but they're not. I personally wouldn't call them goals, because you're not exactly in control of those things. You can do things to enhance your chances of that happening. You can work towards those things, and they're things that could go onto your goal list. So say, for instance, you wanted an international book deal. Well, then one of your goals might be to query international agents this year. And if you've queried, and you might set yourself a target of, now you can't actually control whether you get an international agent, because that's up to the agent, but you can control how many agents you query, for instance. You can do a course on how to write a great query letter, that type of thing. So you make your goals achievable and measurable, something that you can tick off at the end of the year and say, so you can say, finish my book, and then you can tick that off at the end of the year. Submit to an agent, tick that off at the end of the year. Submit to a competition, tick that one off. And I think as well as those achievable goals, I think it's a really good idea to think about what you want out of the career long term. Do you want to be an author and quit your day job? Because if that's the case, you need to know that for most people that doesn't happen quickly, and it can take years and years and many books, because despite rumours to the contrary, writers, each book will make obviously a different amount of money. That's why authors can't really talk so much about money in any way that's meaningful, because every book will make a different amount of money. It will depend on the advance that you get. It will depend on how many books sell in the marketplace. It will depend on how many books were printed in the first place. So, for most authors, even those that look to be quite successful, most people are not even making a living wage out of their writing. The vast majority of writers in Australia, not when they begin. Yeah, that's not to say it's not possible. It's definitely possible. And if you keep working at it, probably even, just that it's probably not going to happen with your first book. You could get lucky, and if you do, that's fantastic. But the reason I tell you this is not for you to give up hope and say, oh, well, it's not worth it then. It's for you to know that it is possible in the long run, and to not give up or feel bad about yourself if when your first book comes out, you don't sell hundreds of thousands of copies. You're very unlikely to do that in Australia, at least. If you sell internationally, you have probably got a better chance of that happening. So I guess what I'm saying is, set yourself achievable, realistic goals and celebrate those successes. One of the great things for me about each year revisiting my goals is that I can actually feel good about the things that I've achieved. And I wish I'd done it earlier in my career, because when I first started, I can actually remember saying to one of my writing friends is that I just wanted to see my book on the shelf in the bookshop. I just wanted a book with my name on the spine in a bookshop, and I said, if I can achieve that, I'll be happy. Well, I've done that many times over now. I'm still not happy. I'm still striving for something else. But it's good to remember that. It's good to go back to those goals and revisit them. When you're having a down day and thinking that somebody else has achieved more than you, or that X person has sold many more copies than you, or X person's got an agent and you haven't, if you've set those goals for yourself and you're achieving those goals, you can feel good about you achieving your own goals. So, and I think, really have a think about what success means to you and how much success you actually want. Like, perhaps you just want to have writing as a nice hobby that makes instead of costing you money, makes you a little bit of money. And that's a lovely achievable goal that and shouldn't be sneezed at. Like, it's something that is definitely worth doing. Or maybe, as I said, you might be like me, you might just want to see one book. I mean, you might change your mind when you get to that, but have a little think about what success means to you, because writers have this terrible habit of always thinking that we're not successful enough and not celebrating the wins that we do have. So I guess the takeaways from today's video are: get yourself a writing tribe, some writing friends, but try not to compare yourself. And if you do compare yourself, be honest with your friends about your feelings, be open, and try and support each other through that. And the third thing is to set yourself some goals and measure yourself against your own goals, not some pie in the sky, I haven't, sold 100,000 books yet, so I'm no good. Set yourself your goals, check in against your goals, and that's a really good way, I think, of being satisfied with the career that you have, the career that you can actually have. All right, I was going to try and keep it to 15 minutes. It's now 21 minutes. So once again, it's been longer than I had anticipated. But thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget you can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you would like to get a notification when these videos drop. But they do drop every Monday usually. If you follow me on Facebook at just the Lisa Island Facebook page, so just Lisa Island, you will find that I pop a link to these videos up every Monday. And I'm on Twitter as Lisa Island Books. Oh, sorry, actually, I don't know what my Twitter handle is. That's my Instagram handle. I am on Instagram as Lisa Island Books. Don't follow me on Twitter because I never tweet. I mean, you're welcome to, but I never tweet, hence not knowing my handle. But I am on Instagram as Lisa Island Books. So yeah, find me in any of those places and you'll get a reminder about the videos. Hope this was some help for you today. Bye.